The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Planted with Sarah Payan podcast. I'm Sarah Payan, your host, and today I am welcoming back former governor of Minnesota, Jesse "The Body" Ventura. Welcome, Governor. And
Thank you.
It's so good to see you. And we also have the CEO of Retro Bakery, Mason Alt, on the show. Mason, it's great to meet you. We have a lot to talk about. We have just had an election. We have things going on in Minnesota. We have a lot to unpack it seems like it's a long podcast, but we always have so much to talk about. We could do several hours of conversation. So welcome. I'm really excited to hear more about the partnership and how the two of you found each other. But before we begin, Mason, how did Retro Bakery start? Give us a story about your company.
Yeah, so myself, I was caught in Illinois bringing back my medical marijuana from Michigan to Minnesota. Legal in both states, obviously not supposed to transport it, but there was no flower in Minnesota medically at the time. That's how I find my relief. And so, fast forward 6 months later, a federal farm bill gets signed in 2018, which is like right at the same time that I'm given, probation for what I did. Illinois legalizes a month later, and I start this hemp company, and we just kind of doing odds and ends. We're real passionate about cannabis, and we open up our first retail store called Love is an Ingredient. That's right in Minneapolis there. And from that, we talked with customers and we were working with vendors, and we just saw a big gap of quality chocolate products in the market. And so hence was born Retro Bakery. So it's kind of like the best way I can describe it is this is something you could definitely give to your mother or your grandmother. She's going to love it. It's going to be a great treat, and it's going to be dosed and lab tested appropriately, where it's going to feel really good for a first time person using it. None of the stuff we have is going to be like, knock you out and take you for a wild ride. Everything's really good for newcomers. And then we do have some higher dose stuff, but it's very clearly labeled. But yeah, that's where Retro Bakery comes. So it's my wife, it's my dad. We started this basically, making chocolates in our kitchen at home. And then as the hemp laws progressed here and we had to upgrade, now we have a 15,000 square foot commercial kitchen here in Brooklyn Center. And we're looking to expand into a lot of new avenues here. Really cool stuff on the horizon. So
very cool. And now you're working with Jesse Ventura Farms. Jesse, how did that happen?
Well, that happened over the fact that, 20 years ago, when I was the 38th governor of Minnesota, I pushed back then for the legalization of cannabis and marijuana because it was wrong. And I laughingly think back to then, I couldn't get one person to even carry the bill. See, you have to remember, I was an independent governor. So I didn't have a political party over there in support of me to carry my bills or whatever I wanted to get done. I had to have some rogue person do it from one of the parties and then, get a couple rogues from the two parties, and I might get a bill read on the floor and then they'll vote it or whatever. But I tried way back then, and of course it failed miserably. Couldn't even get one person to carry the bill to the floor from the governor. But funny thing how things work and how government works and how slow it can be. But I lit the match. And fortunately, I only stayed for one term, but the match stayed lit. There were so many people in Minnesota in support of this, and they saw their opening, and there was just a crack in the armor. And I like to think I provided that crack in the armor. Mm-hmm. And when the crack appeared in the armor, with no knowledge of me, I was gone on to other things. It grew, and that little match grew into a little fire, and pretty soon it grew into a campfire, and pretty soon I got a phone call, and it was from current Governor Walz. And he said, "Governor," I said, "I think you should be in my office Monday at 11. And I said, "What for?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to sign ending the prohibition of marijuana in the state of Minnesota." He said, "This was your idea." And he said, "You're fortunately still alive to see your idea come true." And he said, you should be over my shoulder. And when I sign it into law, I want to hand you the pen, because he said it's you and
Yeah.
you deserve the credit for it. So I went over there, the first lady and I, and we stood to the governor's right. And when he signed ending the prohibition of marijuana in Minnesota, he handed me the felt tip pen that he signed it with. And I knew at that point, and I always knew I wanted to be. Now, let's go back in my history a little bit. I'm a former Miller Lite All-Star. I've pushed Miller beer, light beer from Miller, tastes great, less filling. In fact, in the 80s, they had a whole national thing called Lightomania that was based upon wrestling and me fighting the masked marauder.
I remember that.
Yeah, tastes great, less filling. Oh, it was an entire light beer, 1 month publicity. Got paid well for it. You got paid good for Miller beer.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I thought to myself, well, and then of course I graduated here locally and supported Minnesota Brewing, which puts out Pig's Eye and local beer. And you probably saw my cutout in every liquor store in Minnesota holding that keg of beer or whatever it was way back in the 80s. So I thought to myself, look, you've pushed alcohol. Nobody seemed to mind that. You were retired because that's one of the stipulations as a former pro athlete. You have to, I think, have 5 years in retirement to where before you can come out and legally endorse things of that nature, alcohol or whatever it might be. And I thought to myself, you've always liked marijuana better than alcohol. Personally, I've always liked cannabis better than alcohol. And so in my mind, I thought, you know what? I want to be the first high-level politician, and I think I qualify being a governor. That puts you up in the upper echelon of political figures. There's only 50 of them at one time. And I said, I want to be the first high-level ranking politician who fully endorses cannabis and marijuana. So there was a big event in Minneapolis that took place, and my son got me down there. And I made that statement that night that I wanted to be the first. They brought me down because they were crediting me with it's here. Prohibition's gone. I think that's what it was. It was the party to end the prohibition.
Yep.
And that night I said, I want to be the first high-level politician that puts name, likeness, and endorsement on marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
And the first person that came forward to us was Retro Bakery. They were right there that night, damn near with a contract in their hand. And they said, we'd like to go into business with you. And, from that point on, I'll shift myself because this isn't my business. This is my son and his 3 partners. And they came to me with this idea. I always wanted to do it in the first place. So I've turned it into their hands. I participate when they need me. I make the public appearances when needed. I put my name on the product, but it's those 4 that are truly Ventura farms.
Mm-hmm.
And I will admit, there is no farm.
Not yet.
Not yet.
You'll see them sit tough together. We might get a farm.
We won't say there won't be. There could be. I don't know. But I'm basically doing what Willie's doing. Willie Nelson.
Yep.
Willie's not out tending to his field. Willie's putting his name on it.
Right.
It's a branding.
Yeah.
It's a branding thing. But I wanted to do that. Retro seemed like when we got together, it seemed like a natural fit. Number 1, they were local. Number 2, they couldn't get much more local with me because I used to be the mayor of Brooklyn Park, which is a stone's throw from where we're sitting right now.
Yep.
You can throw a rock to Brooklyn Park damn near. And so it's an area that really is synonymous with me. And we came out with our Lake Street because I grew up on Lake Street in South Minneapolis. So we've come out with, there it is right there, our Lake Street.
Oh, the gummies. Yeah, I see
Yeah, the gummies.
So that's
we got the Lake Street
Stonehenge Bridge there, and just like a bunch of Minneapolis themed stuff you're gonna find on the packaging, on the back and on the bottom.
And so, we did things like that, to tie it to me and to my history of in Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And, now hopefully we'll expand worldwide and do the whole thing, because we've got a lot of big interest from the South from wrestling.
Oh, for sure.
So we may have to change our names a little from Lake Street to maybe the figure four leg lock.
I love it.
Or if it's an indica, maybe the sleeper hold.
That's yes. Everyone will totally get that. Well, and it's
the sleeper hold.
The sleeper hold.
And you're gonna sleep tonight.
Well, and it's such a beautiful combination, because especially with around normalization, you being not only a prominent political figure, but a cultural icon. Talk about, a 1-2 punch as far as normalization goes, really having you, step up. And, I'm pretty sure our listeners know this as well, but a former Navy SEAL too.
Yeah. Well, I've lived a varied life. I did my military duty. Although I'm very disturbed over that. We won't go into it today. It's something that, whatever will come out. But no, I did 6 years in the Navy, and I always like to laughingly use the cliche, I couldn't sing or dance. In other words, I wanted to be in the entertainment world, but I couldn't sing or dance. So I had to figure out some way to get there. No, I more or less stumbled into wrestling. I came out of the military hoping to play football. And when I went to college on the GI Bill, you didn't have to name a major. You could take anything. You could dabble around. You're getting paid by the government now. You're reaping the benefits of 6 years of military service. And so I got into theater. And I'll reveal to you, I've revealed it before, but I actually did Aristophanes' The Birds in college, which is a Greek comedy.
Yeah.
And I was in the college play, and I took a lot of acting. And while I was there, it dawned on me, wait a minute, football's all physical, but wrestling, that's physical as well as performing. You're going to create a personality here. You're not just a name on a jersey wearing a helmet.
Yeah.
Who the only time they'll see you with the helmet off is if you get a concussion. And, that's the only time you're going to see a guy with a helmet off. And I thought wrestling allows me to create a character. It allows me to act. So it had the physical of being an athlete combined with the theater added into it. It seemed at the time, and I was 23 years old, 24 years old, it seemed like the perfect combination for me.
Let me ask you a question about that, because the first time we spoke, when I got off the call with you, being a Midwesterner, I'm originally from the Upper Peninsula. I turned to my husband, Jeff, and I said, talking to Governor Ventura is like sitting down with my Uncle Bob, who was a football player in college. He did a double scholarship for football and basketball at Northern Michigan. He and my stepfather both played ball. And they dealt with a lot of injuries afterwards, because football in those days was very different than what we see now. So much different.
I'll give you an example how different it is, if you'll let me.
Absolutely.
Well, I went out to the Vikings last year. I got a friend, and he took me out early for the Vikings. And I watched their practice. And when practice was over, I was down on the field, and I got the opportunity to talk with Harrison Smith, who's a 12, 13-year veteran, Notre Dame, starter for the Vikings, probably could end up in the Hall of Fame, should end up there. I don't know if he will, but, because DBs, they don't get all the flair, right? But I asked Harrison a question, and I was so proud, because he looked at me first and he went, good question. Which, they're going to get them all.
Right.
But I was proud of the fact that when I asked him this, he looked at me and said, good question. And here's what I asked him. I said, Harrison, you've been around 12, 13 years now. You grew up playing football like I did growing up playing football. And you were taught how to tackle, and you were taught that you used your head. I said, Harrison, if you tackle that way today, it's a 15-yard penalty. I said, what have you done to change your tackling so that you don't get a penalty anymore? Because you were brought up head to head was fine. That was no penalty when we came up in football. Harrison said, good question. You know what he did? You know what he told me he did?
What?
He said, I went to the library. Here's your all-pro. He went to the library and he took out all the film he could get on rugby. And he studied how rugby guys tackle. Because in rugby, they don't wear helmets. They don't lead with their head. They tackle with their bodies. And Harrison incorporated watching rugby and learning how to tackle in rugby. He then transferred that to football.
Wow.
And now he doesn't get penalties. He still knocks the crap out of the guy when he hits him, but he just doesn't lead with his head, and there's no head-to-head confrontation that causes the concussions.
Yeah, because
he's learned how to lead with his shoulder into the other guy's body.
Yep.
That's so smart.
And he did it, and he told me he did it by checking out nothing but films of rugby. He watched how rugby was taught, how the tackling was taught, because in rugby they don't wear no pads.
Right. Yep. No, they don't. I mean,
it's football without pads.
Yeah, it's a rough sport. I went to school with a lot of rugby
I did
players.
it in the Navy.
Good.
We used to play rugby. We played the Australians.
Oh.
We played them a half of American football and a half of rugby. And ironically, it ended up a tie at the end of the two halves. But the Aussies declared us the dirtiest players they had ever played. They said, we'll give you guys this credit. You ain't that good, but boy, are you dirty.
Oh,
and do you know why they called us dirty?
Why?
They called us dirty because of our lack of knowledge of the game. In rugby, you can't block. When the guy's running with the ball, you can't run in front of him and knock people down like football. Well, all of us are trained in football. When the guy's running with the ball, you run in front of him and knock people down.
Yeah.
Well, that's cheating in rugby. That's dirty play in rugby. That's why the Aussies called us the dirtiest players they had ever played. And it was only because of our lack of knowledge of not knowing how to play the game correctly.
Oh, boy.
We automatically, the football brain came. The guy's got the ball. Hey, you're in front of him. Knock this guy down so he can keep going. That's what you do in football.
So when you look at that and the different kinds of injuries that people get from that, and we have a lot of, sports celebrities that are starting to get into cannabis and talking, especially with like the injuries that they get, especially with the football players and, the brain injuries. What for you using cannabis? Does any of that help with any of the injuries that you sustained?
It was hell.
Yeah.
Tell you why it was hell. I used cannabis through my entire wrestling career. I had to avoid getting busted. I had to avoid getting caught in airports with it.
Yeah.
I had to go through all the crap because cannabis was essential. Number one, at the end of every wrestling day was the same. You flew to a city. You checked into a hotel. You went to the gym and worked out. You got something to eat. You went to the arena. You wrestled that night. You got out of the arena, got something to eat, went back to your room, fall asleep, get up at 8 a.m, catch a plane, on to the next, and repeat the whole thing over again.
Didn't you do like 30 days or something in a row?
Oh, I at one point flew 28 days in a month.
Wow.
28 days in that month I was on an airplane. You should see when I tell stewardesses that, flight attendants. Oh yeah, I flew once 28 straight days. They look at you like, are you insane?
You must have had a heck of a frequent flyer mile program.
No, I ended up critical condition with blood clots in my lungs, lying in a hospital in San Diego with pulmonary emboli. Nobody knew that you could get blood clots from flying too much.
Yeah.
I was one of the first that got them. The night before I was to wrestle Hulk Hogan for the world title. How much money did that cost me?
Yeah. Yeah. That's no joke. People don't consider
a lot of
that.
Money. I was in a hospital. My wife had to fly out 7 days in intensive care. It virtually ended my wrestling career. And then I faced, what do I do now? Like all pro athletes, you don't think about when it's over.
No.
You don't think about that. You ain't got time to think about that.
Right. You have to be in the moment.
You're in the moment. You're wrestling 28 days a month. You're going around the horn with Hulk Hogan for the world title.
Yeah.
Now that's gone. You're lying on your back. You're critical for 7 days. Your wife has to fly out. And then you look in the mirror and go, what do I do now?
Yeah.
What, I'm going to go to General Mills and tell them, hire me as a executive vice president? Here's my resume. I'm a pro wrestler. You ain't got no job waiting for you. Ain't nothing waiting for you.
But
you know who saved my life?
Who?
And she's coming to town the end of this month, and I hope we see each other.
Who is it?
I have a place in my heart for her because she did me a favor that gave me a second career. Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper was doing that wrestling stuff then.
I remember that. Yep.
She was coming to Minnesota. I was on the shelf. I turned to a friend and said, what can I do if my career's over? He said, you know sports, be a sports announcer. You can talk. So I went and visited my friend at Channel 11. He introduced me to the station manager. I told him my situation. He gave me an award-winning producer and cameraman, said, go get me something. Cyndi Lauper was coming to town. I went out and interviewed Cyndi. And during the interview, she dyed my hair multiple colors. This was at the punk era.
Right,
when
totally.
all of that was in.
Yeah.
So Cyndi dyed my hair 4 different colors, and we did a whole show on it. They ended up doing it in a 2-part series on the local TV here of Cyndi Lauper. She introduced me to the crowd that night, brought me out and to show off her hairdo she did.
That's awesome. Hey.
Well, what happened? What happened from that?
Uh-huh.
Vince McMahon saw it. Vince McMahon called me on the phone and says, do you think you could do color commentating? We've never had a villain on the microphone before. Someone who sides with the bad guys. I said, I know I can. And that was the birth of Jesse the Body on the mic.
Well, you have
my career got a second, and all because of and Cyndi Lauper played a major role in that.
Absolutely. But also the fact that you're such a good entertainer with the gift of the gab. I mean, you have to give yourself credit.
Without Cindy's help, I wouldn't have got it.
That's true. Well, and I don't know if you can
Cyndi
answer.
Cyndi was kind enough to do that.
Yeah. Does she?
And I don't think Cyndi even knows about it. I don't think Cyndi has any idea what that did for me.
Well, you got to tell her.
I know, that's why she's coming to town in December.
Now, I don't know if you can answer this question.
And I'm going to go over there hopefully before the show, and we'll chew the fat a little bit.
Does Cyndi like cannabis? And if you can't answer,
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm not going to answer for Cyndi.
No, exactly.
Cyndi will answer for Cyndi.
For Cyndi, that's
no
respectable.
Idea.
Absolutely.
But judging by Cindy's music and the business she's in, I'm sure she's not anti-cannabis.
She's probably just tried it once.
Yeah, exactly.
Inhaled, I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe she hasn't inhaled.
Well, but getting into like the now, what were you were about to say something, Mason?
I was going to say like, well, this whole story of like why Jesse even had to, the amount of, I guess the amount of damage your body takes, doing these excessive things is the main main reason that we're, right now we were waiting for the new kind of farm bill to see if it was going to pass, to see if any laws changed. But now that they haven't really changed, we're about to release, kind of a pre-workout, after workout, a protein mix, a huge line of kind of like, get your body correct, give it the things it needs after you work out or before you work out, and that'll be all under Jesse's brand. And so, and then as well as that, as many know, Jesse's wife. Yeah.
We'll be shooting 35 grams of protein into every guy working out.
Yep.
So they can have 35 grams of protein plus cannabis, and we're going to blend it so it'll be a cannabis that helps them work out.
Yep.
Then when they're finished, they get a 35-gram protein of a takedown.
I love that.
To where you now get another 35. That's 70 grams of protein within the 3 to 4 hours, which is every guy training wants that.
Oh, yeah.
Wants that. And then the second one will relax them. They've had their tough workout. Now sit in front of the TV and watch Andy Griffith.
Yeah.
There you go. I know, like when I used to do more work with individuals in cannabinoids, I worked with a lot of athletes, and a lot of them said that they liked cannabis for their workout, to have something that's uplifting and energizing. But we also did some interesting work around CBD and using it as a restorative afterwards, especially with the micro tears with workouts. And what we found was that people were bouncing back faster. And they were really, really enjoying
and
the
resting
results.
better.
Yeah. And
if
that's part of it.
you rest better, you come back quicker.
And it makes sense because your body makes these cannabinoids naturally in itself, right? Those are called endocannabinoids, whereas the ones from the plant that we're using are called phytocannabinoids. And so it's basically like taking a vitamin C tablet, but for this entirely unique system of your whole body, And so, and it has been known to manage the stress of your body.
And this whole thing, how man matches up these cannabinoids. Come on.
Yeah.
When you look at it from that aspect, cannabis was made for man.
Oh, we have
one of the match up that way if it wasn't.
Absolutely. We have one of the oldest symbiotic relationships in cultivation with cannabis. And when we look at CBD, I mean, THC and CBD are both so important. THC will behave as the analgesic. CBD will help as an antispasmodic, as an anti-inflammatory, and then also as a neuroprotective. And also as
stopping seizures.
Yep, sure is.
Because that's my passion.
Yeah. Yeah,
my wife,
that's right.
My wife was suffering 2 to 3 seizures a week. And at the time, we went to the doctors. They put her on 4 different pharma seizure medicines, one after the other. None of them worked. They all had horrible side effects.
Right.
But guess what? My insurance paid for all of them.
Yeah.
No problem.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't work, but they paid for them. Then, out of desperation, we went to Colorado because Colorado had lifted prohibition. We had friends from Mexico there. We illegally bought the drops under the tongue.
Right, you have the tinctures.
Not had a seizure, and we had to get it illegally from Colorado then, until they opened up here. And then in Minnesota, it cost me $600 a month. And guess what? My insurance wouldn't pay a nickel.
Humboldt Family Farms is rooted in the legendary hills of Northern California, where cannabis isn't just grown, it's lived. As one of the top sun-grown cannabis brands in the state, Humboldt Family Farms represent a collective of multi-generational family-run farms deeply committed to sustainable practices, environmental stewardship, and the craft of cultivation. Every harvest reflects decades of knowledge and a deep respect for the land, the plant, and the people who enjoy it. Now, they're partnering with Surfer Magazine and Embark for a first-of-its-kind collaboration, the first time in Surfer's 65-year history that they've ever partnered with a cannabis brand. The drop includes Humboldt Family Farms' iconic Maui Wowie flower and Hawaiian Fanta pre-rolls. You'll find the collab exclusively at Embark locations across California, and a limited number are dropping as part of Embark's weekly Getaway Bag series, a fresh tote every Friday packed with California's best cannabis. And it sells out every time. Embark has earned its place as California's most trusted cannabis dispensary, but they're not just selling cannabis. They're creating experiences that connect people to the plant and proving that it can be a force for good. They're pioneering what normalization looks like, bringing legal sales and consumption to places no one thought possible, like the California State Fair and Cali Roots. This summer, they'll do it again at Dead & Company's 60th anniversary in Golden Gate Park, followed by their 5th year at Outside Lands, with Humboldt Family Farms right alongside them. Every Embark location gives back 1% of sales to its local community, helping fund youth drug prevention programs and logging thousands of volunteer hours across California. A collaboration like this with Surfer Magazine and Humboldt Family Farms is an extension of this mission. It proves that cannabis can exist in mainstream culture, that it belongs in iconic spaces alongside one of the most demanding sports in the world. This is what progress looks like. For more information, visit Humboldt Family Farms at HumboldtFamilyFarms.com, Embark at GoEmbark.com, and Surfer Magazine at Surfer.com.
They were happy to pay for what didn't work, but for what did work,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they expanded. It dropped to $300 a month. And now it's expanded. I'm in business with retro. It's zero.
Yeah. Well, and okay.
And I'll tell you what, that alone is good enough for me. Having my wife seizure free and it doesn't cost me anything to keep her seizure free.
Right? I know.
That's a big payoff right there.
That's huge. That's huge. And looking at, your business model, because you are a hemp-based company and the things that have come out, kind of the nothing burger of the Farm Bill right now. But also we're seeing, like here in California, euphoric cannabinoids are no longer able to be sold. We have this emergency regulation that's going on. But one of the things that I noticed with Minnesota that I thought was really interesting and seems that it could lend to normalization and expansion of accessibility is the fact that you're serving Delta 8 drinks in your bars and your restaurants. What do you see? How do you see this this kind of scare on hemp-derived cannabinoids that's going on across the nation? What are your thoughts about that where you are and how that might impact you or not?
And then just for clarification, all of the THC sold in Minnesota is going to be Delta 9 THC, so the same THC that can be found down at like the recreational medical program or a recreational program out in Michigan and stuff like that. We just have to stick under 5 milligrams a serving and like 50 milligrams for the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Minnesota has normalized like crazy, and especially with the help of
and we have a governor who's okay with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank goodness.
And not even that, but just after you see the laws get introduced, they're getting updated in positive ways rather than restrictive ways for the most part. And so one of those things that actually recently happened in the last legislation was that instead of just going to a restaurant or a tap room and buying like a THC seltzer in a can, now they can serve it on a keg. So they can have a keg with a tap line or what we just came out with too. So like, for example, like our Jesse Ventura, like Baja Blast, like this little THC shots, like 10 milligrams of THC in there. We now sell those in a big like 0.75 liter like bottle to restaurants, and then they can serve those out every like ounce is 5 milligrams of THC. So as long as it's super cool stuff. I mean, Minnesota, I'd say is easily the leading state for beverages when it comes to the hemp side or even the cannabis side. So
and what's great about it is the young people. Mm-hmm. I mean, the beer companies are in panic because the young people are not drinking beer like they have for generations and generations. Mm-hmm. When you got 18 to 25 years old, you drank beer.
Yep.
I mean, it was that simple. Well, the young people today are smarter. They're finding out, well, gee, I can take the THC and feel great at a party and get the same feeling I get from alcohol, only I don't have to run out between the garages and throw up halfway through the night.
Or feel like crap in the morning.
Well, no, I'm getting to that.
Oh.
Not only do you save that the night of, but then the next day, young people can get up and go to work.
Yeah.
Because they don't wake up with a headache. They don't wake up with a pounding skull. Mm-hmm. They don't wake up, throwing up in the morning then from ingesting all the alcohol the night before. The young people aren't stupid. I mean, they look at this and go, okay, I've got choice A or choice B. choice A, I can get sick and throw up either that night or the next day, or choice B, I get none of the above.
Right.
I think I'll go with choice B. Kind of
Yeah.
reminds me of Cousin Vinny when when he walks in about the fighting.
Yeah.
I got two choices. I can beat the crap out of you or beat the crap and get $200. I think I'll take the $200.
Right,
Yeah.
right. No, what I love about the shots, like what you have, is those are things that I put over ice, add a little fizzy water, a slice of lime when I have guests over. Those are our cocktails, and because it's easy to dose out, you can determine all the different tolerances, because like, a lot of my guests have lighter tolerances. I tend to have a little bit of a stronger tolerance, so I'll do like, my friends always joke, what do you do with 20 milligrams in a beverage? I'm like, well, then I go write an article after that. And they're like, you're kidding me. I'm like, well, we're all so different. But when,
Yep.
we're looking at like the growth of the company and the different things that are coming ahead, before we got on recording, we started talking about some of the things with Minnesota, and also with just kind of the changes that have been made to make kind of a higher barrier for entry, and especially with like social equity and things like that. And Mason, I'm wondering if you want to give us some insight into what's going on in Minnesota, because over in the neck of the woods here, we've got our own battles we're fighting.
Right. Yeah. In Minnesota, like out the gate, we worked really hands-on with the bill and the authors of the bill. And opposite to the problem Jesse had, if no one wanted to carry the bill, they were fighting over who was going to carry the bill here in Minnesota, And
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, right. And, yeah, yes and no.
An amazing change in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And so while we kept, initial licensing fees really low and things like that, we made kind of like the skeleton of an infrastructure, and we relied heavily on this Office of Cannabis Management to create the rulemaking around that, to interpret the statutes, and essentially run the show, right? And as much as I'd love to say it's a fair system, I think recently in the last couple days, with it looks like with the social equity kind of system going through, there was about I think about 1,800 applications for social equity this round for the first round of cannabis of licensees. There was a bunch of different qualifying reasons. One of the biggest issues there was even like our president Kyle, like he had a like previous like cannabis offense, but if you don't get in trouble again, we'll just wipe this from your record, right? Well, so now all these people that like basically played the game exactly to the T when they got caught with cannabis are no longer eligible to be a social equity applicant. And then now that we're finding that as people have submitted their initial application, what's called the pre-application, just to make sure your capital table's good, like you're not going to do anything funny, you're not just you don't have a bunch of stuff under your belt, like trying to just like pull all these like gadget moves because you're an expensive rich corporate out-of-state company that can just do that. And so that's what they're trying to do right now. But for example, like my license was declined, and they said that's not Retro Bakery or anything like that, that's just my own separate company, and I don't own any part of Retro Bakery, right? And so I should be able to go out and start my own marijuana company and let this company remain hemp. And they just said my capital table didn't match. They gave me no ability to fix it. In statute, for example, it says I'm supposed to be given this like 2-week period or something like that, like where I'm supposed to be able to update that. And so, but what it looks like about 1,200 people had their applications declined for numerous reasons without any ability to really get that, reversed.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they basically just sent out a letter saying, hey, we know this news may be unfortunate, just so you know, there'll be another round coming up. And it's like a lot of people are just confused. You have lawyers right now that are looking at applications that, people paid thousands of dollars to get submit. And they're like, we're looking at the statutes, we're looking at everything. There's no way this is wrong, And then you have the OCM coming out saying like, oh, well, we found that some people were using the incorrect IP addresses, or some people, it's like weird stuff like that. That's nowhere in statute, by the way. There's nothing that says, they can't, for example, like what if like, you just go to the same library as somebody? Are they going to say, oh, you were on the same IP address and now your applications are declined because they think that you're flooding these applications through the system? And it's just this, there's no communication. And I know Governor Walz, I know how Minnesota has really upheld themselves in the last 20 to 30 years of just running as a state, and they're almost always going to be educational before they just put down the ban hammer. Like, they are always willing to work with you. There's been instances, where they'll just do things out of the ordinary, just to help out, a business to get by or something like that, and they're just doing the complete opposite of that here. They're just shutting down. They're not taking anything into consideration. They're not doing their due diligence as the statutes require. And so, like I said, right now you have 1,200 applicants that, and this is a social equity phase, right? Like, these are people who need help to get their application through. Like, these are people that may have just gotten out of prison within the last year or two for doing something in cannabis, right? And they don't even have the ability to, and so it's like to say, oh, you should just spend a lot of money on lawyers. Well, that's what some people did, and you still rejected their thing.
Well,
It's
yeah.
just,
I mean, for being, that it's a very expensive no with, and when you think
upwards of the $2.5 million worth of applications, I believe that got denied just in one quick day, and it just took the money and ran, it seems.
Yeah, and the sourcing of those finances, because banking is so difficult, a lot of that is coming from friends and family.
The governor will be getting back on leveler ground now.
I'm sure.
If there's any big problems, I'll call him.
Yes. And like I said, this is something that I haven't even talked to Jesse about, just because it's just happening. Literally, people are getting their applications of declining right now. And like, I don't think the social equity, I don't think getting in the first round necessarily puts you at too much of an advantage unless you're needing like financial aid, right? If you need to, like, hey, I have a guaranteed license, I'm going to go find, my 35% and other side of the cap table, that's going to put up all the money. I have the license, let's do this, and hopefully it's not kind of like how California did, where we just pay you a monthly, salary, and you just step back and we take all the money,
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what they definitely don't want to happen, and we don't want that to happen either. But there's a lot of companies that have been operating in this industry for over 5 years that had their license declined without any ability to raise their voice about it. So
there has to be some recourse for that. That's a lot of money going.
There's a lot of lawsuits, or whatever you want to call them, that are in order on the OCM from giving out licenses and doing the lottery and hopefully getting this resolved before that lottery. So it'll be up to the court, and I think the more people are aware of what's going on, and so that's what as soon as this is over, my job is to just do some social media content just to educate the consumers of what's happening. We've educated our consumers. We started this in 2018. In 2019, I could sell you stuff that it would be considered like high dose marijuana. It would be higher dose stuff than what like Minnesota's recreational laws currently would allow, right? And that was under the hemp program. And we could sell flowers, we could sell vapes, the whole 9 yards. At least that's what people were doing. And then now it's been restricted down to 5 milligrams a serving, 50 milligrams per package for THC. You can't do anything else other than edibles and beverages. Beverages are limited to just 2 servings per drink, so 10 milligrams.
Flower starts next year, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully, depending on if the OCM can give people their licenses. The nice thing about flower is if you absolutely need that in Minnesota, both the medical program now is getting affordable and decent quality stuff. There's been some strains I definitely approve of. And then the native tribes, a lot of their stuff is getting really high quality. They just might, charge you a little bit more. But now that they're reaching the out of season, like, people aren't traveling as much up north, for example, because Leech Lake, etc., all these tribes, they're way up north, And so if you're going up north already, those dispensaries are busy. So I guarantee those dispensaries are going to start lowering their prices now that people aren't going up north as much. And so, you can find affordable flower in Minnesota right now. And so, just a sneak peek, nothing's officially set in stone, but we are working with a couple of the tribal nations in Minnesota to hopefully get a license on their land and start operating Jesse Ventura Farms and Retro Bakery under their license. And so we can distribute through the tribal nation until the state gets their stuff together, at least. So.
That's awesome.
Are you looking for a lasting, meaningful way to connect with your audience and highlight your brand? Well, listen up, because Planted with Sarah Payan is taking on new sponsors. Here's a powerful stat. 20% of listeners are more likely to support brands they hear about on a trusted podcast. And 60% actually look up that product after hearing about it. That's the power of podcasting. Planted with Sarah Payan has a unique draw. With remarkable guests, we attract and engage audience that spans all sides of the cannabis spectrum. Picture your message reaching these listeners time and again. Podcast ads are evergreen, meaning your brand stays relevant as new audiences discover and binge past episodes. It's a long-term investment that keeps on giving. If you're looking for a targeted, passionate audience with lasting impact, the right listeners are here waiting to meet your brand. Visit plantedwithsarah.com to get a copy of our sponsorship deck today.
So, and with the future of Retro Bakery and Jesse Ventura Farms, are you looking to reside in the hemp space going forward with that? Or is there any ideas of maybe shifting into the cannabis space?
So Retro Bakery definitely wants to move into all of the spaces. Like we could even move into other states right now that are already legal just through licensing agreements and stuff like that.
Right.
And so we believe that Retro Bakery, just due to like the nature of the like our products and who our demographic is, I do believe that the United States will eventually shift into this low dose hemp market. And then similar to how like I can go over to Wisconsin and get like a little bit higher proof Everclear than I can in Minnesota, the higher dose stuff is going to be state to state, right? Whereas the low dose market under the hemp stuff is always going to be similar. Like I do believe that the United States tried to implement this 2 milligram per serving, 20 milligram per package idea in Florida, Georgia, I think a couple other states, and Minnesota was one of them, and that's when we renegotiated the 5 and 50. And so then Florida, as you saw, just tried to do the same thing, 5 and 50, but DeSantis vetoed it. They said, I see the people pushing this law, and it's not the organic cannabis people in Florida. They're like, this is the corporate cannabis companies from out of state that are pushing these laws. And he's like, I will never sit down and talk to those people. That was kind of what the DeSantis approach was. But as you can see, this Retro, we want to stay on the hemp side of it, but I do believe we will be licensing out to the marijuana side, especially in Minnesota. Same with Jesse Ventura Farms, they'll be licensing out, as well as people start to get licenses. Who that goes to and who the relationships that we make along the way, who knows, you know what I mean? Right. So, and that's, yeah. And so, but like I said, right now we see, for example, like just with Terry, right, Jesse's wife, if hemp was available and we educated it, I mean, in theory, back in 2015, Jesse could have gotten the full spectrum, CBD products that Terry needed, like Charlotte's Web and stuff like that. But the education is what was lacking, right? People don't know this, It's like, if you're too afraid to go to your dealer down the street and buy marijuana, you're probably in the bracket of, I don't know very much about cannabis, but I know I need it, and I know my family member needs it, or whatever, and nothing else is working. And that's why I think sticking on the hemp side is so important, and really advocating for that and pushing for something that's going to help people on the hemp side. Yeah. That way we can reach all the states that, basically have these individuals that need this, and so we focus a lot of our education and our ad content on educating, just telling people that, hey, this is available. We have a lot of products that have 0 THC in it that just help you sleep, that just help you get through the day, all that kind of stuff. And so it's not all just about getting high, Retro Bakery, I think, is more about just bringing the family together and going that more holistic approach about it, and using something that our body is basically, like Canada says, that there is an endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome. You can be deficient on these cannabinoids.
Well, that's what creates the balance, right? And when we're looking at this, it's like, one of the things that I think that the market has been ignoring is that huge wellness market. It's an untouched area that we need to have more conversations and education around, but also educating the consumer about them voicing their opinions about cannabis and hemp policy so that we can create better policies. And I'm really heartened by the fact that, because whether we're talking hemp or cannabis, it's the same plant, as we know. Yes. The markets, the industries are talking to one another, and I feel like we're going to start to work together more to drive better, safer policy. Being able to make it more accessible, being able to make it safer, having better price points so that patients can afford it. And I'm really excited about that. And and you guys, we should get together and talk about this again, because there's a lot to cover, and I love what you're all doing. But what are some things that you're excited about and just hopeful about the future? Come on, Jesse. I know you got something.
I'm hopeful because politically all the weight's off. I mean, we got a guy now that's going to fix everything, don't we? No, the head of our country is going to make America great again.
Here's what we should do, Jesse. I think what we should do is we should make a line of edibles similar to how we have because Jesse ran for Green Party, as we all know.
Right.
So what we have both bobbleheads of Jesse standing on an elephant and standing on a donkey, right? Because he's the Green Party, stands on both of them.
I wasn't really the Green Party.
Well, independent party. Yeah. I'm sorry, independent party. I call independent green just because you promoted cannabis. That's this is as green as you'll get. And like I said, and so I think you could start an edible line of doing similar things. You could have you with your head on top of Trump. We could make like little tiny hands as gummies. We could, sell them out.
Well, I don't want to tick him off though.
Oh, come on.
No, because he holds in his hand, he could legalize it federally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
maybe he'll see the profit coming in from his own brand and he'll do it.
And I wish he would. But no, I mean, as far as everything goes, I mean, now I'm not going to be politically involved at all anymore because they told me he's going to take care of everything. I don't have to. I don't have to watch over anything because whatever's wrong, he's going to right it. And it's and our future's all in his hands.
Well, that remains
to be seen. Make you feel good?
Oh, well. Can I, if it wasn't in the middle of the day, I'd be smoking a joint with you.
I mean, he singled you out. He said, I'm going to take care of you whether you like it or not.
This episode is brought to you by Fat Nugs Magazine, a global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. Right now, you can join Fat Nugs Magazine, Beard Bros Farms, Freedom Grow, and Jailed for Weed in the upcoming Prisoners Edition and help spotlight current and past cannabis prisoners and their stories, because no one should be in jail for a plant. Find Fat Nugs Magazine's beautiful print copies at your local dispensary, fatnugsmag.com, and on socials. Cannabis culture welcomes us all. I like to see him try.
So you're gonna get taken care of whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's been the story about how women have been treated for forever. But what he doesn't realize is there's a bunch of women that we're gonna push back. We're gonna push back.
And I'd love to get my wife on the podcast too sometime. She's the true owner of it all. So, and she's the one.
I challenge you. No, you're not. You had your chance and you blew it.
Well, I tried. Darn it if I didn't try.
No, I know. I did too. I even stripped it down to the basic. Yeah. You know what I stripped it down to? I put it to this way. I said, I never believed in my lifetime that I would see a black president.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yep.
Barack Obama served 2 terms.
Yeah.
Well, I said, I'm voting for Harris because how many more elections am I going to see? I'm 73. They're only every 4 years.
Right.
I wanted to see the first woman president. Now I'm probably not going to.
Yeah, I think that it says a lot.
Because they've had the opportunity twice. And it's failed 2 times now. And I can only think when all is said and done, it failed because of sexism.
Oh, absolutely. The misogyny in our country is alive and well. And it really makes me sad to see it because you see somebody who was probably one of the most qualified candidates. And she didn't make it.
And a prosecutor.
Yep, and a prosecutor.
And instead, they elect a criminal.
Yep. It says a lot about where we're going. Yeah.
A convicted felon. and a sexual abuser.
Yep.
And he's now, all our kids can look up to our president and say, I want to be like him. Oh. I remember when I was a kid and John F. Kennedy was president and all the little kids wanted to be like President Kennedy.
Right.
Well, now we'll have a whole generation of kids that are going to want to be like President Trump. Makes you kind of feel great for that generation, huh? That they got they've got a great standard to look at. To emulate. Because that's what a president used to be.
That's what a president used to be.
Yeah, a president used to be someone that you all looked up to and you all emulated and you all wanted your kids to grow up and be like the president. Well, if you grow up and do that today, what will you end up with?
Right. Yeah. And what does this election say about, we talked about young women and you can be whatever you want to be. Well, if you're more than qualified, you're still not going to get it. And
that's right.
I really was
got a prime example of it right here.
Prime example of it.
Well,
I'm glad I'm glad to be here with you guys. Hey, there's something to be happy about. I really,
there are a few of us men that, understand and can look at a charlatan and see one. And you got to look at it this way. We got a president right now. You could call us the United States of Jonestown.
Yeah. You're not wrong, Jesse.
I know. Because this is the same, the people that are the same as followed Jim Jones down to South America or wherever the hell it was he went.
Yeah.
Drank the Kool-Aid.
Well, being from the Bay now, right? I've heard a lot about that through the years. That's for sure. I just want to thank you both for spending time with me today. We have a lot more to talk about. And really, seriously, the invitation is open to come by whenever. It's been so nice meeting you, Mason, and Jesse. It's always a joy to sit with you.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm not going to get political anymore because I don't have to.
Yeah.
I have someone now in the White House that's going to fix everything. Nothing can possibly go wrong. And if everything does go wrong, will we have him to blame? Or will they find someone else?
Right. That's
My bet is they'll find someone else.
Well, for those of you listening, vote in your local elections, get involved. It's a hard time.
And finish off by say c'est la vie and goodbye to the Constitution, because it's gone.
Oh, Jesse, we can't. Well, we have to end. I hate to end on this note, but you're not wrong, and we need to pick this conversation up. We do. So
okay.
If you want to have a conversation with Jesse, sometimes you just need to take some of his gummies. You might get high enough, you'll listen to some of his podcasts, you'll get with his views. But if times get stressful, like I said, we've got lots of good products that will help you get to sleep. So,
and actually, before we close out,
we have what'll save you from all the political dilemma out there.
Exactly.
No matter how horrible it gets, and no matter how bad it gets in the future.
And how do
here, Jesse Ventura Farms and Retro Bakery can save you.
How do they reach out to see your products? I love you guys.
Yeah. I'll get with your email and we'll send you out a gift bag. I'd love to.
Oh, we'd love that. And for our listeners to be able to follow you on social media, how do they do that?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram. It's retro.bakery. That's probably the best one to do. Facebook hates us and they just keep taking down our page like every other month,
Totally.
But Instagram's the biggest thing. Otherwise, it's just retrobakery.com. You can go.
Or they can go to Ventura Farms.
Yep.
Yes.
Ventura, just look up Ventura Farms.
Yeah, he's on YouTube.
Don't ask me how to do it because I'll announce and tell everybody I still have never owned a cell phone.
I don't blame you.
Signals is how we got him here today. So
I've never owned, and I don't plan on getting one in the future.
I'll break the record now.
Well, it's been a pleasure. And
thank you. And my pleasure.
And we will talk again soon.
Very good. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
And everyone, remember, if you like listening, please give us a review, share it with a friend. Let us know what your favorite episodes are. And if you'd like to stay in touch over social media, we are Planted with Sarah Pion on Facebook and Planted with Sarah on Instagram and Twitter. You can also go to our website, www.plantedwithsarah.com, or listen to us on our parent network, Radio Misfits Network, where there are other great podcasts, like one of my favorites, the Winemakers Podcast. So check it out. You can listen to Planted wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, whether that's Pandora, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, Stitcher, TuneIn. We are there. So join us. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, it's a wild world out there. Be good to one another. Until next time, take Take care.